Welcome to the Investing Bros. I am T. Shroom. I'm joined today by none other than Caleb Franzen. It's Wednesdays, so you know it's Caleb Franzen Wednesdays. Guys, we got a house vote here coming up. It might be happening live. I'm going to be monitoring it. And if we do get the outcome of the vote live, or if there's any kind of interesting fireworks going on in the live stream for the House of Representatives of the United States, we will cut over to that. But we're going to be getting into some regular crypto news. And we're going to be looking at the charts, absolutely. And we're going to be doing it all here on the Investing Bros. You're locked in. Make sure that you smash the like button and consider subscribing. Let's get it. All right, well, here we are. The big day, the big vote. How you doing, Caleb?
Doing good, man. Good to see you. Unfortunately, Tim can't be here today, but we're going to rock and roll, man.
Absolutely. Where is Tim? Tim is down in Jacksonville, Florida, I believe. He's visiting Taylor's side of the family, his wife, and they are just celebrating a little Brody and having a good time. Some much-needed R&R for Big Tim. And he's missing out on a great week of volatility, of a lot of happenings. Of course, tomorrow, some very big, exciting news about Ethereum spot ETF potentially being accepted. Of course, we were going to sleep on Sunday with zero expectation of the ETH ETF being accepted, and now suddenly it's a 75% likelihood, and the betting markets are saying it's going to happen. So it's pretty crazy. What do you think about that just off the rip, Caleb?
Dude, so I run these group calls with premium members of Cubic Analytics every week, and someone last week asked me, so look, what do you think about Ethereum right now? And it looks like, we're not going to be getting approval and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, there's basically no chance we get approval at this point, right? And because that was the market consensus, right? And once again, it's almost like the consensus is just so off the mark, right? So very, very interesting, right? Then it definitely does. The more I'm kind of sitting with this whole thing, it really does kind of feel like one of these big institutions or firms or somebody somewhere behind the scenes tapped the SEC on the shoulder and said, hey, nudge, nudge, these need to get approved and get in line.
I agree. That does seem to be the case at this point. Whatever the forces were that were keeping the Biden administration, that were keeping the House Democrats, that were keeping the SEC very staunchly, explicitly against crypto, those forces have changed. We don't know exactly for how long those forces have changed. It may be temporary, just to let in this Ethereum ETF, and then they could come right back on and go full into Ethereum as a security again. I don't know how that would happen, but essentially the force has changed. It could come back, but it looks today like there could be a very clear path for crypto to become all of these politicians' favorite talking points to try to get votes. We've already talked about politics so much, that I hesitate to dive into it too much more, but Caleb, it's not just a bunch of interesting news and headlines. We've also got real price movement since we last spoke. Last week, Bitcoin was quite a bit lower than it is now. If we jump over to my screen, you can see that Bitcoin has moved up and to the right quite precipitously. We've seen a nice move here higher, and it was let's see, on Wednesday of last week, Bitcoin was shooting up, and we got a buy rating here from LuxAlgo, and so we did have a nice day last week. I believe this was happened while we were live, this movement to the upside, but we have actually gone 17% higher since then, and to live price 13 and change percent since last Wednesday. So you've been bullish. Obviously, we've been pretty bullish here in Investing Bros ever since kind of the bottom was somewhat much more convincingly in. Are you surprised by this movement to the upside? Were you thinking that we were going to get it this quickly all at once? What are your thoughts on this big bullish move?
Maybe the pace of this rebound, especially over the past several days, has been a shock. But that's literally what happens when market moving news comes out that all of a sudden something that the market had consensus on is no longer consensus. And we're going from a, sub 20% chance of approval to 75% chance, all these updated filings, so on and so forth. It really does feel like this is going to be the actual approval, which is nuts. So I think that the rally that we've seen, this explosion higher that we've seen over the past, what has it been? 2 trading days, pretty much. has been epic. But certainly I didn't predict that this run was. It was so funny. I think it literally was 2 days ago. I did a post. I was like, I'm buying ETH and I'm going to the beach, and that's exactly what I did. And then I started getting some messages, some DMs from people saying, "What just happened? What just happened? What just happened?" And I looked at the prices, and they were just launching higher. And it was like, I just got totally lucky. I saw a decent, small, short-term time frame setup, and I was like, okay, like I'm gonna buy more. And that's what I did. I bought several ETH, and I took entire profits on that position at 3,800 last night. So one hell of a trade. Bought in at 3,104, sold at 3,800. Like, that was epic. You can't ask for something faster and better than that, right? And again, I think one of the things that's so funny to me, I've been reading this book called Market Wizards, and you're really kind of listening to these traditional finance investors and traders from the 80s, the 90s, early 2000s really talk about how they've made so much of their money and what kind of goes into the psychological aspects of being a successful trader. And what these guys, almost all of them, said something along these lines in common, which is that, first of all, they control their stops super tight, right? And when they feel like the market is in somewhat of this like accumulation mode within a broader uptrend, they're buying and stopping out time and time again, right? Because they might have super small risk controls. And so that's kind of how I've been really kind of navigating this market myself, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to keep buying because something at some point randomly is going to move this market tremendously to the upside. And if for whatever reason it moves the market tremendously to the downside, I'll get stopped out. But I'm listening to all these phenomenal traders, right? The Paul Tudor Jones of the world, saying that they're going to get in, get out several times, take small haircut losses, and then one time they're just going to rip to the upside. And so, I got kind of lucky with that, right? And I think what I wanted to say about that was sometimes it's better to be lucky than to be right. And you need to give yourself the opportunity to be lucky by making sure that you reduce your losses if and when you have to take losses, right? So I think that's a really good kind of lesson to really share here as we kind of kick the stream off today.
For sure. Well, bros, we are closely monitoring this stream here. I won't turn on the volume, but this is Maxine Waters live, giving her astute 2 cents on House Bill HR 4763. It's skipped ahead here, and we have another representative here from Arkansas, French Hill, giving his input on it. But we will more than likely be getting a vote before the stream is over. Other important things happening today. NVIDIA's earnings are going to be coming out probably at market close, which gives us an incentive to stream all the way through to 4 o'clock and beyond. So if you want us to stream the NVIDIA earnings as well, go ahead and be in the chat, be active, give us that incentive to keep on chugging. Well, we're going to get to charts here in just a few minutes on the other side of the news, but that is really what is going on here. The news is actually really big today. Obviously, this House bill that I've just referenced here, Bill HR 4763. This is the FIT 21 bill that is it's really aimed at taking regulatory power out of the hands of the SEC and putting it in alternative hands. Namely, it looks like CFTC, but what's important is that it's out of the hands of the SEC. And one of the bigger headlines that we're about to get to involves the White House showing some weakness on this, showing some willingness to pivot a bit on crypto and being a little bit more crypto friendly. And we're gonna get into that quite a bit. But this episode is brought to you all by Arculus. Arculus is a cold wallet that we have partnered with, and it's one of the best ways to store your crypto. Getting into this first story here, Biden does not threaten veto against House crypto market structure bill, but opposes passage. Getting into the details isn't super useful, in my opinion. I do have some highlighted here that are good. A good summary, though. This is the second statement of the administrative policy the administration has published in recent weeks after threatening to veto against a bill looking to overturn controversial SEC accounting guidance. That bill sailed through the House and Senate. So there's a current threat to veto, and I don't think that veto has happened yet. But this was the tone last week, right? And that tone has shifted. The statement came hours after the SEC Gensler published his own opposing statement on the legislation, saying it would harm the regulators' efforts to police traditional capital markets as well as crypto markets. Caleb, of course, laughing at the use of the term police. What are your thoughts on that use of that term there?
Yeah, it's like, please don't take our power away. We want to keep punishing this market as much as we can. It needs to be policed.
Absolutely.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's a great use of words there, Gary.
Right. Yeah.
But F21 would redefine how securities issuers have to comply with existing federal law and Supreme Court precedent, the SEC chair said in his statement, which sounds a lot more broad than I was under the impression of. Redefine how securities issuers have to comply. So FIT21, the way this is written, sounds to me like it's going to be having an impact on security issuers in general. But what I think is being implied here, what I would hope is being implied, is that it's security issuers for crypto ETFs, for digital asset ETFs. I think that's more than likely what's being implied. What's important is that this man here, not that guy, this guy right here has pivoted. Right, there's been a show of weakness on crypto, and it has everything to do, in my opinion, with the fact that Donald Trump and JFK. RFK Jr. have come out very pro crypto, and Trump, was kind of on the fence for a while. He was doing some stuff with NFTs that was cool, but he wasn't, staunchly pro crypto. That has changed after a speech he gave last week, and now it looks like Biden is going ahead and saying, "Hey guys, if I'm going to keep getting this free pudding here at the White House, I'm going to have to go ahead and be pro crypto." So. Caleb, what do you think ends up happening? How big of a moment is this? Is it, because it feels big? It feels big to me, and it does feel like this House vote is extremely important, and all of these this tectonic shifts are happening because now the rubber is meeting the road, and Congress is voting on a bill that really, I believe, this is the first domino to kind of go ahead and say that Ethereum's not a security, reaffirm Ripple's not a security, and the rest are probably not securities either, with some exceptions.
Look, I don't really dabble much into the regulatory game. I'm not a lawyer. I don't really care about trying to become one, right? Any of that kind of stuff. So for me, the regulatory stuff is always a pain in the ass. That's how I view it, right? So anything that's making the regulatory framework and the regulatory environment less stringent, I generally support, right? Whether or not this is that, I have no idea, right? I really didn't even hear about this thing until yesterday, and even this morning. I think for me, what's most important here is kind of this pivot, this shift that we are seeing from the Biden administration, and just generally seeing, first of all, this guy probably can't even spell crypto. Second of all, I think the fact that, right, you hit the nail on the head. It's like Trump moved first on this, and now Biden is feeling like he needs to catch up. I think also to kind of match the message that RFK Jr. has been having about crypto and Bitcoin more specifically. And it's pretty amazing to see. I think just that in and of itself speaks to the growth of this nascent industry. And again, it's like with something like Bitcoin in particular, which doesn't have a CEO, it doesn't have a marketing team. Like we don't even know who the founder is, right? It's like everyone becomes a proponent for Bitcoin. Everyone becomes a proponent for crypto. And I think that's what we're kind of seeing, that power and that transition and that momentum take place. And for me, that's probably what's most exciting about all of this. Just showing like this really is something that's inevitable in terms of the adoption, the growth, hopefully a regulatory alignment, right? Whether that's this regulatory approval or the one that we're all going to be talking about 6 months from now and the one that we're going to be talking about 3 years from now. Like, there's always going to be more regulatory stuff all the time, always. It's always going to be there. Mm-hmm. So again, that's why for me, it's like, I'm just not really going to worry about it too much, especially when we see what is the trend, right? We are moving in the direction of more adoption, more on-ramps for demand, so on and so forth. And now these politicians are essentially competing for our votes based on their stance on crypto. And I think that's a beautiful thing as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And my take is I do think this is a big moment. I think that perhaps it's being overstated right now. This isn't a bill that is saying that that Ethereum isn't a security, right? That's not what's happening here. It feels like that, though. And to me, it does feel like kind of the beginning of a big shift. Mark Cuban tweeted out today, 1:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. He said, "I think this is just the start of the shift. Patrick McHenry, make the call to the White House and lead the charge." That came after Justin Slaughter gave a pretty key insight here, saying the White House statement on administration policy FIT21 versus the SAP other day, that was that accounting change, is a huge course correction. What happened between then and now? Trump endorsed crypto, Democratic allies called the White House, and 700,000 crypto voters made their voices heard. So the tides are turning, and they're turning pro crypto at a time where the SEC has a lot of pressure to make a decision on whether or not ETH is a security or whether or not it should be allowed to be bundled up in an ETF and sold just like commodities, just like gold ETFs, just like S&P 500 ETFs, just like real estate ETFs. So we're going to see it. We're going to see it happen this week. It's exciting, but it's not all that's going on. We've also had the Fed minutes come out today, and Caleb, we were talking a bit before. The headline reads like this: Federal Reserve minutes indicate worries over lack of progression on inflation. Participants observed that while inflation had eased over the past year, in recent months there had been a lack of further progress towards the committee's 2% objective, the summary stated. 2%, goodness gracious. The committee's 2% objective. The minutes also showed various participants mentioned a willingness to tighten further policy should risks if inflation materialize in a way that such an action may become appropriate. Some really good Fed speak there. The meeting followed a slew of readings that showed inflation was more stubborn, more sticky than officials had expected in the start of 2024. There is the decider. No, of course, that's a George Bush quote, but this is one of the deciders. So, Caleb, in light of what CPI prints that we got last week that actually sent the market markedly higher, that was a big catalyst of bullish pressure that had been building on the crypto and the stock side. Now that we have a little bit more information from the Fed, albeit I'll say it's crumbs, it's not much. Has your view shifted ultimately on cuts in 2024? And in general, kind of what is your takeaway from these Fed minute prints?
Okay, general takeaways is there are no takeaways. This is the same message that the Fed has been telling us for the past 2 weeks, the past 4 weeks, the past 6 weeks, the past 8. This has been the message, right? Is that more rate cuts might be. What have I been saying? Every time I come on the show and we talk about the Fed policy, what do I say? The Fed is trying to maximize their optionality in the future based on a wide variety of different outcomes. That's what the Fed always tries to do. The sooner you accept that, the better, I promise, right? I had to learn that a very long time ago, and I'm trying to make people learn it now, okay? So I think that is really, really important, right? The Fed tries to maximize their optionality in the future. And so when they say that rate hikes might be appropriate at some point in the future based on the evolution of the incoming, right, like all the Fed speak, right? That's them saying, we don't know what the hell is going to happen, but we know how we're going to react in a variety of different scenarios. And so they're just making sure that the market is not shocked if and when they have to make policy changes or shifts. That's all they're trying to do, right? So my general view here is that the Fed is still tracking towards one rate cut. Let me be very clear about that. I was on the show a couple of weeks ago and I was saying hikes instead of cuts, so I really messed that up. I do apologize. So I think that we're likely going to get one cut in December. At this point, I've even thrown the November meeting out of the picture. I think one thing that's also very important here is that the Fed minutes and the last FOMC meeting took place before the release of the recent CPI data, right? And so the recent CPI data overwhelmingly showed that disinflation came back into the picture. Is that Maxine Waters interjecting? How dare she? It's all good,
Pardon
bro.
me. Continue.
No. Don't worry about it. So look, I mean, overwhelming disinflation came back into the picture, right? And I think one of the things that I had mentioned on X in immediate reaction to that data coming out last week is that this is certainly a positive development for the Fed, but it's certainly not sufficient for them to cut rates now, right? That's why I'm still saying 6 months from now is when they're going to be cutting rates. So, that's the viewpoint here, right? Again, the Fed is going to try to maximize their optionality at some point in the future. Rate cuts are certainly more likely than rate hikes, right? The only way we're getting rate hikes is if inflation reaccelerates like back above 4%. I really don't see that as being on the table whatsoever. And again, the latest round of inflation data shows disinflation, which means that there is a lower rate of inflation on a year-over-year basis, came back into the picture. The Fed is going to be very happy about that. But again, it's not sufficient for them to cut tomorrow, right? So we still need to be patient here.
Absolutely. Yep. And it's not just Caleb that feels this way. Also, some of our friends on Wall Street, Goldman Sachs CEO says he doesn't expect the Fed to cut interest rates this year at all. So, that's kind of the way that we've been leaning here on the Investing Bros. Caleb obviously has been leaning, in this direction towards, higher for longer. It's going to stay this way. But what the market does get isn't cuts, but what the market does get is certainty, right? Certainty that we're not going to get cuts, and it can begin to adjust its business models, its financing strategies for new growth accordingly, and that does generally, be conducive to confidence in the market because now there's less uncertainty. There's another update here on the vote that's coming up here. U.S. Senator Cynthia Loomis says there's a bipartisan majority in both chambers of Congress in favor of crypto. The future is very bright. That is definitely very, very bullish. Got that this morning. So just to be clear, pivoting a little bit away from the minutes, Caleb, I think you did a really good job kind of summarizing there. The minutes told us what it's been telling us. Probably not getting cuts in 2024. If we do, it's not going to be till very, very late. And and like you said, hikes are just not even on the table until like you said, inflation getting back up above 4%. I think even 4% would probably not give us a hike. I think we may even need to see a bit north of that. And as we saw, what we learned a lot during the pandemic was that oil prices are such a big part of inflation that they really, for me, they're the kind of the leading indicator on where inflation is going to go. And there's two major escalations, military escalations in the world going on right now. One of them in the Middle East, one of them in another region that produces a lot of oil. If those two conflicts can't skyrocket the price of oil, there's probably not a whole lot that is going to make oil more expensive. Therefore, hikes are probably just not on the table because oil is just it's playing ball with inflation, and that's what old Jerome at the Fed really needed to make all this come together for this quote unquote soft landing. All right, well, that's the Fed. That's the Fed coverage. We did get a quick update here from Polkadot. Actually, Polkadot eyes $9 amid bullish market trends. Market price is close to flipping $8 into support, which is critical in initiating recovery. After preventing two bearish crossovers this month, MACD is now observing rising bullishness. So we're seeing it in a lot of cryptos. It's not just Polkadot. Also, we covered it this morning in the 9 a.m. stream. The MACD for Bitcoin and Ethereum on the 1 week charts are actually starting to curve back bullish, which is pretty nice to see. So we've talked about the House vote. We've kind of previewed that a little bit. If that comes out, we're going to cover it here live. And we've talked a little bit about the CPI. Caleb, I don't think there's anything stopping us from just diving on into the charts and doing some TA on altcoins, taking suggestions. Are you down for it?
Always, bro. Always.
Awesome. All right, we'll just jump into your chart here, and bros, let us know, what do you guys want to see some TA on, and we'll dive on into it.
Okay, so we're taking a look at FetchAI here, right? I actually like this chart a little bit better in linear scale than log, right? Really just shows us the magnitude of this run here. You guys will remember, especially if you've been watching this show consistently every week that I'm on, this has been a key area of focus for me because something like Fetch, something like Render have continued to, something like Solana, for example, have continued to stay above their 100, 200 EMA cloud, right? So in green, we have the 100-day EMA. In black, we have the 200-day EMA. And we can see that this was perfect support in that Q1 correction to kind of start the year. And then it's been holding perfectly as support once again here, right? And so for me, the big thing that's really important, let's get this back into regular scale now, is we are starting to break above these daily close pivot levels here, right? So I know we had some wicks that went down below this range, but we had that low daily close right there and a low daily close right here, which generally has been resistance since we broke down below it. The thing that I've been loving about this setup is not only are we using the 100, 200-day cloud as support, we're continuing to make higher lows through this range. And now we're getting a breakout above a structural resistance level. This looks fantastic. Obviously, we've had situations like this where we get a wick above that level and then reverse back lower. So I'm not going to celebrate and say that we're out of the woods now on something like Fetch. This has been a position I've been building out over the past few days, been very happy with this. And generally speaking, if we get a retest of like 238 is where I'll be looking to re-add to this position, right? Why 238? It lines up perfectly with that former low close. Resistance right here. We couldn't close above that level. Resistance here. So 238 to me sounds like a really good place where I'll be looking to add to this position again if we have that opportunity. I think the AI tokens right now are definitely worth focusing on just because we do have the NVIDIA earnings coming after the market closed today. I'm happy to touch on those earnings in just a
Yeah.
minute. Render is also something I've been building a position in since we broke above the 61.8%. If we really kind of zoom in on this now, let's just look at this with 2-hour candles to get the 100, 200 cloud out of here. But as soon as we broke above that level, even when this retest here was picture perfect, beautiful, and now we've been moving in higher, right? And so for me at this point, what I'm really looking for now is an extension from the high to the low of this move, targeting the 161.8. That gives us a pretty sizable move to the upside. Let's see, price range. If we can secure this breakout, it's basically another 10% move to the upside, right? And so for me, when I took this position here, targeting basically 17%, this has been it's been working beautifully, right? And obviously, this is going to move based on the NVIDIA earnings report, so I think that's going to be key. I don't have any insight into how NVIDIA is going to report earnings or what they're going to issue in terms of guidance. But I know to be paying attention, and I know not to bet against the horse that's continued to win time and time again, quarter after quarter. So, yeah, I really like these AI tokens a lot right now, and I think Render and Fetch are the two that everyone should continue to should have already had on their radar based on the tone that I've been kind of bringing to these shows. And now they just continue to exhibit strength in this market. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Well, it's why we bring you on week after week. We love it. You've got some great picks, and you should never be trading based on what people are picking. You should be trading based on what you learn from their insights. And sometimes the picks straight up are just good picks, and there's nothing new about that in the financial reporting world. But absolutely. So we will continue to have Caleb on just as long as folks continue to learn, and I don't see any end in sight for that. Red line said near protocol. So that's a pretty interesting one. And Kyle Field said LTC, Litecoin. And then we've also got a snack shout out. So I do not mind jumping in and looking at a couple of those. But Caleb, did you have any other insights, perhaps on Ethereum? I don't know if you've been looking into that one, or even on Bitcoin. Just kind of zooming out to the macros while I jump in here to do a little TA on some of these smaller caps. Not that Litecoin's all that small, but
sure. I also want to touch on this one here as well. This is Avalanche, right? So I was a little bit negative on Avalanche the last time I came on the show. I'll show you why that was the case, and we'll see if that's actually become more constructive since I was on last week. But I think the thing that's important here is we have this accumulation zone. This is classic Wyckoff kind of look, right? Here's the spring, here's the breakout, and now we're retesting that zone. So I think right here, this looks fantastic. I would be bullish on this so long as we stay above that blue zone. So basically 37.40. If we can stay above 37.40, I think that this looks really good, right? And even right here, if you really want to control and manage your risk, you could literally take a position right now and cut it if we fall below 39.20, right? So really tight risk reward there. Where I think you can really control and manage your risk. And as traders, as investors, that's all we can really ask for. We're talking about taking a 2% stop loss on the chin if we fall to 39 even. And basically we can assume or target a return back to these local highs, right? Which is 27% upside. So I'm talking about risking 2% to make 27%. That's it's like 10 point, it's like 13 risk reward. So, that's fantastic. I think that's really, really strong. If we, let's go ahead and let's talk about Bitcoin. You know what? Let's talk about Ethereum. Let's talk about ETH.
Nice.
I really like what's happening in ETH right now. So generally speaking, the structure that I was really focused on was this massive wedge that was shaping up back when we were in here. And in my mind, it was like, man, are we going to be able to get that breakout, right? And that's why I took the position at 3,100. And I was like, okay, maybe we're going to be able to get that breakout in the coming days. I certainly didn't think it was going to happen in literally 2 hours, right? But it did, right? And like I said, sometimes it's better to be lucky than to be right. If we really zoom in on this price structure though, right? Let's go ahead and get rid of the wedge. We already see it there. What I've been focused on now is this kind of alternating support flipped into resistance zone, right? Clearly we've broken back above that level, and now we're fighting to flip it again into support. We need to hold this level as support. So far, right? So far, price is doing that. We are adhering to this price structure so far. That's a great sign. And so even for me today, I reinitiated another position in ETH. I bought much less than I did the last time around,
Nice.
a couple of days ago, but I'm back in this. And essentially, if we fall back below this blue zone, I'll get out of the position. But, right now I feel very happy with where this is at. Yeah,
Heck yeah.
I think ETH still looks really solid here, especially if you really want to control and manage your risk. If you're looking at this from like a long-term investment perspective, hopefully you were buying ETH over the past 2 months, right?
Indeed.
I think, it's really difficult not to chase here, and I totally understand that. But I think this is where you really need to put your short-term trader's hat on with this. Certainly you can chase this and it can continue to go higher as a long-term investor, right? But when we think about how do we manage risk from a long-term investment perspective, like where do I cut that position if it fails against me, if I'm going to be a long-term investor? Am I going to target these local lows and say, okay, if we get back, but then I don't want to sell it below 3,000 because this has been holding a support. So why would I sell it at 3,000 if support's at 2,950? Well, I certainly wouldn't want to do that. So where do I sell this thing if I'm initiating a position or adding to a long-term bag in this today, right? It becomes much, much harder. So I'm really just viewing everything right now from a very short-term time perspective.
I like it. Trade the chart that's in front of you. We've heard a wise man say that many times. We like it a lot. Litecoin, we'll jump on into that. Good technicals there on Ethereum for sure. I'm holding it. I'm holding it through this decision tomorrow. I kind of feel like a broken record, but I did not buy Ethereum for the ETF. I bought it, a long time ago for the future of Web3, right, as an investment. And that's why I'm going to continue to hold it. If we get the ETF, that's the cherry on top of the icing, which is already the premium that I've experienced from holding it. All right, Litecoin. Litecoin looking really good here. And we've gotten some higher highs. We've gotten a higher high here recently, which is always bullish to see. And we've also gotten higher lows, Caleb. So that's always good to see as well. Those will likely continue. We may even see, this low here has been almost a parabolic acceleration here for Litecoin. Litecoin going parabolic. You heard it here first on the Investing Bros. No, I think Lightning. I think Litecoin will have, it'll have a good run here in the bull market. I do not own any Litecoin, but we will be having on CVO tomorrow, who's actually I think he's the earliest Litecoin investor that I've ever met. He bought Litecoin, I believe, in like 2017, and he's been holding since then. Might even been before that, but he'll be joining us tomorrow.
Should have just bought Bitcoin. You want to go to my screen really quick?
Yes.
This is Litecoin relative to Bitcoin.
Oh man.
So I feel really bad for that guy. Actually, you should have just bought BTC.
Well, it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue.
You said he bought it in 2017?
I believe it may have been before then, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, either way, he's underwater relative to Bitcoin, so that's too bad.
CVO. Oh, man. RIP. But we'll have him on tomorrow to defend his position in Litecoin. I think at this point, he's kind of a Litecoin maxi. Not really. But it's just hard to give up when you look, when you get a really good entry, it's hard to give up a position like that for sure. And also probably doesn't want to have to pay the taxes when he sells.
That's right.
So we'll see. Should he bought Bitcoin? I think the answer is yes in every situation, except for certain moments with NVIDIA. Maybe it would have been better to buy NVIDIA, but definitely not over the long term. So that's Litecoin. Not a ton of TA to do on that, but it did just have a pretty nice little spike to the upside, like many other cryptos did here in. Actually, for Litecoin, it was a little bit later. Most of the cryptos had a nice spike on. I think it was March 12th. Is where it reached its recent kind of local highs. Litecoin has actually played with a couple of different highs here, but if we did return to those, that wick high would be 31% and then 26% respectively back to the candle body closes here on the daily. Not too bad. You are getting the Bollinger Bands widening out there with a little bit more uncertain, a little bit more volatility to be expected. Did find support there on the midline, so that has been respected. That hasn't closed a candle above the midline since all the way. The whole candle hasn't closed above the midline since all the way back here in April 9th. So now that we've gotten multiple candle body closes above that midline on the daily, that's going to be bullish. A lot of investors are going to see that as pretty bullish. But hey, at the end of the day, this is Litecoin, right? There's kind of a negative stigma for it being a really old altcoin that, what really is the long-term future for Litecoin, that is uncertain. But, this bull market, I guarantee you. Well, I would do not guarantee you, but I feel pretty confident in saying the Litecoin will be higher this time in 2025 than it is today. Let's see some of the other coins. Did you have any queued up to kind of show, Caleb, next?
Let's see if I have any just kind of off the top of my mind.
Yeah, Chainlink perhaps.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about Link. I know username
Nice.
really likes Link, so
Absolutely.
kudos to him. He's probably, if he was buying, in the past few weeks, he's done well. The thing that I had talked about with Link specifically was the fact that we were coming right back into that zone. So I was saying at the time, look, that is valid support, right? And it's worked as support. It's been great. I said I felt like there was a really high risk that it was going to break down, but I said it is valid support, and it's worked. I think right now, for me, with respect to Litecoin, it's hard to tell, right? It's like, or sorry, not Litecoin, with Chainlink, excuse me. We're coming right back into this zone here, which makes a lot of sense, right? It was this resistance pocket, this resistance, flip this into support, breakdown. Guess where we're back at, right? So honestly, if you were buying as I don't know what username's time perspective is, right? But a trader who took a short-term position in Link based on this support zone is now selling in this resistance zone. So I'm not surprised at all to be seeing some of the sell pressure come into the market. You'll notice I have some AVWAPs here on my chart. I think if we lose this AVWAP range, AVWAP stands for Anchored Volume Weighted Average Price. So this is telling us since May 15th, what is the volume weighted average price of all Link that have been transacted and exchanged on Coinbase. So this is really useful information because, again, it's telling us exactly where market participants are anchored and where price is trading relative to that anchor, right? So I love using these AVWAPs. If you ever want to add them onto your chart, go into the projection tool here, tag the AVWAP. For me, I like to put it at the low of a range, and then, it already just went ahead and did it. But what I like to do is I'll put one at the low, and then I'll put one at the open, high, low, close over 4, and that's how I get the range here. So we're looking at both of those, right? If Link falls below this range, which right now is basically 1590 per Link, that would be a short-term sell signal, right? It wouldn't mean that we're going to fall back into this red zone, but it's a short-term sell signal until we can get back above it, right? I wouldn't be chasing this here. So the way I see it is you're going to take a short-term position right on the AVWAP and cut it if we fall below. Or if you're more of a long-term investor, you're going to be waiting for the breakout above the blue zone, and that becomes your new level to manage risk against, right? For me, all I want to know, I can't control what the market does. So all I want to do is optimize and control how I manage risk, right? And I manage risk on breakouts or retests of support. Those are the two ways you manage risk. And so retests of support can be structural levels, or they can be these dynamic levels like AVWAPs or moving average clouds or the smart trail indicator from Luxalgo, whatever the case is, right? But they give us a clear ability to manage risk. And that's all we can ask for at the end of the day, right? Because we can't control what the market is going to do. All we can control is how we respond to what the market is going to do and the opportunities that we take in the market, right? So
Absolutely.
That's why for me, I wouldn't necessarily be looking to chase this right now. But if it falls into the sub 16 range, that's where I might kind of perk up my ears a little bit.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we had a request for Ondo. Again, you're tuned into the Investing Bros. We're kind of going just shot for shot, shooting from the hip here on TA for different call outs, or at least I am. Actually, Caleb, everything so far you've kind of prepared. So that's a little different.
This was not prepared, amigo.
Oh, okay.
We're just jamming out, bro. This is great.
Nice. So we are shooting from the hip here on the Investing Bros. If you're having a good time, smash the like button. Tim is away. He's doing some family stuff that is celebratory and fun, some much needed R&R. We are also closely monitoring here a live feed of the Senate debate on Bill 4763, which is a crypto-related bill. If this gets approved, it's going to go to the Senate. And as of today, your boy Joey B said that he would not veto this bill if it's passed. Maybe he's not your boy. Sorry if I offended anybody out there who takes the term boy very seriously. But yeah, we're monitoring that. The debating, there was a 1 hour debate that was scheduled, and it started at 2:50, call it. So we are waiting for 350. They could be entering vote, maybe even be finished with a vote. So again, we're kind of monitoring that in the background because that's pretty important for crypto, or at least Mark Cuban thinks it is, and Cynthia Loomis does. So all the people I know, like, and trust, definitely think it's a big shifting turning point potentially for crypto. One little headline here: Bitcoin is coming to Ethereum stalwart MetaMask. That's going to be an interesting one for all you crypto geeks out there who love using MetaMask. I know I do. This could be an interesting little development here. It'll be interesting how they bring in the pipes for Bitcoin as well on that. But let's jump over to Ondo. Ondo looking pretty strong here. It's been flat while a lot of other cryptos were kind of testing to the downside. Ondo was actually going ahead and putting in higher lows all through April and May, putting in some nice higher lows here, making some nice support to be able to build price structure to the upside. If I throw a regression trend on too, we're currently trading just under the top band of that regression trend. Your Bollinger Bands here are widening. Killed the volume, showing that there's a lot of volatility, and the volatility so far has been up to the upside. I do have a bit of a formation here drawn out that we could see a break to the upside or the downside of this. I think that a lot of cryptos, you're seeing a consolidation today in anticipation of the bill that they'll be passing here, hopefully within the next 30 minutes. And obviously the big decision tomorrow from the SEC deciding on whether or not Ethereum will be a ETFable asset. So we'll see. But that's the long and short here on Ondo. I hold some of this, and I don't plan on selling it from a trade perspective. It looks like probably a little bit overbought for the range. However, if we do get a breakout to the upside of this and a retest, that retest level could potentially be a good point to buy in for a breakout confirmation. Just a classic little breakout of this, what is now resistance but could be support. So that's Ondo. A strong one to hold, I would say. But for a trade, I would say there's probably a little bit better out there that'll have more upside potential. If you're looking for range-bound assets specifically, you'd be buying the top here rather than the bottom. So that's going to be Ondo. Caleb, do you have any thoughts on that one, or that look pretty straight down the middle?
I do. Look, I love these types of base setups, right? This looks like a pre-breakout kind of dynamic. We're getting these lower highs through here, but we're seeing higher lows at the same time, right? We defended this level on this rejection from the top. So we're rebounding on an intermediate former resistance level after a major base rejection. This looks kind of like a cup and handle to me, right? I mean, do we not see this?
Yeah, little cup and handle there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, come on. There's your cup. And what are we forming now? Potentially the handle.
Very interesting. Good catch.
Right?
Yeah.
So this looks super clean to me. I love the fact that we're continuing to make higher lows. Feels weird to want to chase this right now, just because the way I'm looking at this, the way you manage risk here is a breakdown below this blue zone, right? And so if we're taking that position right now, that means we're going to have to take a 6% stop loss on the chin. That's really tough, right? And technically, the way I'd be navigating this, and I mean, it's not even technically, like we're talking about it right now. The way I'd be navigating this is I would draw a fib from the high to the low of the move, and I'd be targeting the 161.8. So that gets you to 1.46, right? So that's massive upside here. We're basically talking about almost a 50% gain. Is it? Yeah, 55% gain, right? So to risk 6% to make 55% is really great, right? For sure. But at the same time, a 6% stop loss for me is, I don't take those types of positions in the market, right? I think for me, generally speaking, like a 4% stop loss is as much as I'm willing to kind of entertain from a short-term trade dynamic. So the way I would approach this is by saying very simply, the closer we get to the blue line, the more attractive risk reward becomes, right? Because let's say we could take a position instead at, I got to go to projection tool. Let's do a long position. Let's say instead we could take a position at 91 and change, right? And now my stop loss is here. So now we're talking about 3% stop loss. That's great. And now I would maybe have my first take profit right here, 14%. So even there, we're talking about at least a 4x risk reward, right? Yeah, 4.69. I see it on there. That's fantastic. That's pretty juicy. And then if we can get the final move up here, now we're talking about a 19x risk reward to get to that 161.8% fib target. So that to me is where this really gets exciting. Would I take a position right now, right this second? No. But from a structural perspective, if we're focused on managing risk, as we should be, then the closer we get to this blue line, right, the closer we get to 0.88737, the much more attractive risk reward becomes. It's that simple. So this is definitely something to have on the watch list right now. We have real world assets coming into play with this. BlackRock is very interested, or they're an early investor, or they're somehow affiliated with this project or using it. I'm not quite sure exactly what the capabilities are, but if you go to Ondo's homepage, BlackRock is on the homepage. I don't think that's a coincidence. And so,
Right.
there's definitely something here. It's also a new token. New cycle tokens are always going to do the best in a bull market. Like I'm saying, there's a lot to like here, just not right this very second. 4 hours from now, if this thing is trading at 0.89 or 0.9, I might even take a trade in this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good example of how to manage risk before you're even in the trade. Just get yourself on the winning foot before you're even in the trade, because that's when you have the most optionality. Because it's still your call if you're even in it or not. So I like it. I wanted to get your view on this chart here. I didn't see it shouted out, but this is Core. Core has been a big mover. If you've been keeping your eye here on the crypto bubbles, which I look at it at least once a day. Today it's the meme coin dominance and also some AI moves to the upside, obviously. Render here up 8.2%. And then the other AI names, AGIX and FET, also making some moves higher. But then you see Bonk, Whip, Dog with Hat, Pepe are the ones kind of leading the charge today higher, and those are meme coins. Tau also doing pretty well, and Arweave making a comeback. And I would be remiss if I didn't give it the credence here. Caspa also getting a nice bid up, almost 4% there. But Core again has been dominant on the crypto bubbles, but on the chart it's actually down since. And this spike back here was April 2nd. Since then, Core down to live price is down 60%. Now, Mark Yusko will say if a stock or if a crypto is down 90%, buy it, right? Now, of course, that's not financial advice from him or myself, but with so much bullish momentum here, this is starting to look a little bit more attractive, considering the bullish momentum that this name has had. I'm convinced that it wasn't just hype, all of this. I mean, clearly the market gave back a lot of these gains, 60% of the gains. However, I do think that there is potentially something here. Chat, let me know. What do you guys think about Core Crux? I know that you've done a shallow dive on this one, I believe, and posted it in the chat into the Discord. So I'd love to get your perspective on this too. With it being so, let's look at the momentum oscillator here for the 4 hours low. Let's go to the weekly, get a little bit more data in there for the summary. Oh, has it not been out long enough to see that? Got to go back over to the daily. Oh, it started to load there, of course. Let's check what the daily has to say, though. Yeah, so for the momentum oscillator, this is not actually that overbought. I'm sorry, it's not that oversold quite yet. It's still above the 50 bar, but let's actually go back out to the weekly and see. Yeah, so according to these signals, it's really not that oversold. So you actually would probably want to wait and see this come a little bit lower. It could potentially break down below this uptrending line of support that I had drawn out. So potentially picking this guy up a little bit closer down to maybe 150, waiting for that psychological level might be advantageous. But Core, it's been getting a lot of positive press, and it was actually, you know what? We brought this up last time because I brought up the yields for the Nordic countries. There was a headline for that, and it was Core that was making that possible. I don't know how sustainable that is, but overall, what do you think on Core? Do you think it's a buy here? Do you think it's something to just ignore and not get caught up in?
I don't see any setup there, right? So when I look at that chart, the first thing I do when I pull up any chart is how do I manage risk? That's the first question I ask and answer. If I can't answer it, where am I managing risk? Then I don't take a position, right? And I hardly ever manage risk with like diagonal trend lines, right? I really want to find a structural level and or a dynamic level, right? So like a smart trail, a super trend, an AV WAP, a moving average cloud, something like this.
Mm-hmm.
But when I pull up that chart, I don't see anything on my side. So as
Gotcha.
of right now, I don't see a setup. I don't see any way to manage risk. So for me, it's just not something I'm gonna be paying attention to right now.
For sure. Well, speaking of paying attention, let's go ahead and check in on this live feed, see if there's anything interesting being discussed. I want to make sure we're getting live. If there isn't anything interesting, we'll just cut away. But we should be getting close to a vote here. Let's listen in and see if they're dialed in quite yet.
I'd like to thank Chairman McHenry and Chairman Thompson for all their work on this legislation, and I urge my colleagues to support the bill. And I yield back.
He's got the orange Bitcoin tie there.
Gentleman from North Carolina reserves. Gentlelady from California is recognized.
Look at him zooming off.
To reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlelady from California reserves. Gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
We'll now recognize
there he is.
The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Huizinga, who is the chair of the Oversight Subcommittee on the House Financial Services Committee. Yield 1 minute. 1 minute.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman McHenry. And Mr. Speaker, since First Cryptocurrency Network was created nearly 15 years ago, the rules governing the digital asset ecosystem have remained unclear. As I learned while serving as chairman of the Capital Markets Committee, regulators have been using opaque guidelines and regulation by enforcement. Meanwhile, Congress has been working on a bipartisan path forward. Digital assets have the potential to revolutionize payment systems in the United States by allowing financial systems to become more efficient and more accessible to consumers. By passing a comprehensive market structure framework.
Yeah, so they're pretty much just still debating it, given their arguments for and against the passage of the bill. It's a big bill. I don't know that we'll be on long enough to see the outcome of the vote, which is a bit of a bummer, but hopefully we will. We will get the print from NVIDIA's earnings, so we'll stay at least as long for that, which should be coming here at market close. And you know what? I'm now remembering that I did see that it was going to be 5 p.m. for the NVIDIA print.
That's right.
So let me just make sure about that.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
It's going to be significantly after the market close.
Yes, 5 p.m. All right, so we may go ahead and we'll give it a couple more minutes to see if they go ahead and go into vote, because that could be kind of exciting. But let's go ahead and jump into our factoid of the day, brought to you all by who we trust. Let me hear you say it. iTrustCapital. Absolutely. If you're looking for a tax advantage way to hold your crypto, look no further than who we trust, iTrustCapital. Caleb, who is the chair of the U.S. House Financial Services Committee? Is it Maxine Waters of California, Frank Lucas of Oklahoma, Greg Meeks of New York, or is it Patrick McHenry, the man we just saw, of North Carolina, a champion for crypto?
Wait, wasn't the guy who was just speaking, wasn't he from Michigan?
He was from Michigan, but he was introduced by Patrick McHenry. Yeah.
I see. Got it. Okay. Man, I don't know. I feel like, didn't it used to be Maxine Waters? I don't pay attention to politics anymore. So I feel like at one point it was, but I don't know if it still is. I'm like 0 for 6 on these factoids. So, man, can I change the course of history here and get this one right? I'm going with with Maxine Waters,
All right.
repping the state of California, my home state.
Here we go. Oh my gosh, he's
Let's
done
go. We got one.
There she is.
We got one.
The stunning Maxine Waters there, chair of the House Financial Services Committee. I just got the look from my fiance walking by. Anyway, all right, well, we're having fun. So you got it right, Caleb. How does it feel?
Look, I'm going out tonight. I'm going to go celebrate. I'm going to get some Rocky, which is a Balkan type of alcohol, extremely strong,
Right.
So I'm going to go get some Rocky, drinks on me.
Very nice.
I'm kidding.
I love it. That's right. Very cool. All right. Well, with that, I'm not seeing us get any closer to this vote. Unfortunately, that is kind of a bummer, especially considering, this would have been awesome to get live, but it just doesn't look like it's going to happen. Maybe wait a couple more minutes. Caleb, was there anything else that's kind of been on your mind? I mean, what do you think? I do have a question. So so the Bitcoin passage of the Bitcoin ETF had a sell the news dynamic. However, a lot of that was around the fee that was left at 1.5%, which was deemed by the market to be uncompetitive with the other issuers' much lower fees. I believe the next highest is 0.8 fee for the Bitcoin spot ETFs. Is there potential for a sell the news event even if Ethereum gets approved, or is it just a different dynamic this time around?
Oh, man, it's an interesting question. I mean, I think when you look at kind of these turning points or milestones for traditional financial markets getting aligned with crypto or new products coming out, they've generally been associated with some form of a local market top or even a cycle market top, right? Like when futures got approved in December of 2017. So look, I mean, we had a 21% pullback in Bitcoin after the ETFs got approved. However, think about it this way. Go to my chart really quick. So here was that 21% decline right through here, right? But the ETFs were approved on like January, it was like here. It was like this day or somewhere around here. I can't remember exactly. But what happened was if you took where the price was before the approval, before the leak of the approval to the max drawdown, I think the max drawdown was only 14%. So one of the things that I was talking about on X at the time was that really a buy the rumor, sell the news? Was that even a sell the news type of event? Right? Because first of all, that decline happened over the course of several weeks. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks. And from a pre-approval price to the max drawdown price, we were only down 13 or 14%. So, look, I think that this, and also at the time, the stock market was experiencing a decent amount of pressure to start the year. So markets were on kind of a wobbly footing in the first place. With where we are now, stocks at all-time highs, S&P, Dow Jones, and NASDAQ all hitting all-time highs several days of the week last week and continuing this week. I don't think that this would be nearly as much as a sell the news type of event, if at all. I think what we might see instead is that instead of seeing ETH just sell off, I think what we might see is ETH underperform something like Solana or Chainlink, right? So the sell the news is going to be on a relative basis, right? Because again, the market is a forward-looking pricing mechanism. So as soon as an ETH ETF does get approved, if it does get approved, then the market is immediately going to be saying, what's next? Which coin gets approved next, right? So they're going to look at Chainlink, they're going to look at Solana, they might even look at Dogecoin, right? Yep. I don't think that they're going to be looking at Litecoin. I don't think that they're going to be looking at Bitcoin Cash. I don't think that they're going to be looking at Ethereum Classic. I think it's going to likely be Chainlink or Solana are the two that I'd really be focused on. And so on a relative basis, I would expect to see Ethereum fall versus Solana and fall versus Chainlink in the immediate aftermath. And then we're going to need to see how flows come in, right? Because there's two things here in terms of this being priced in. First of all, the approval in and of itself, and then the launch. Right. Mm-hmm. So what is the demand going to be when this new on-ramp gets unlocked, right? When that dam opens up, how much water is actually behind there? How much demand is actually going to be coming into the market via the Ethereum ETFs if and when they get approved? So there's two things to be priced in here. One of them is the approval itself. The second is the success and therefore the demand associated with these ETFs. We don't know what the second one is. The first one is up in the air, right? Seems like we're going to get it, whether it's this week or if it gets delayed and it gets approved 6 months from now, who knows? But personally, I don't see this one being a sell the news. But I was saying that the Bitcoin ETFs weren't going to be a sell the news event. And look, we had some volatility. We had a little bit of a drawdown. But again, what I was saying at the time was a 14%, 15%, even if you want to be super generous and do the peak to trough decline after the ETFs were approved, negative 21% drawdown. Mm-hmm. Like that's par for the course volatility with something like Bitcoin, especially over the course of a 2-week period, right? Yeah. That's nothing out of the ordinary, right? So whether that came from the ETFs or regular market dynamics, it doesn't matter, right? It's like that's regular, normal, and to be expected volatility in this type of market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I personally don't think it'll be sell the news because I think that a lot of the sell the news came because the market did not know that the GBTC fee was going to be so high. And so GBTC just had this huge incentive. GBTC holders, I should say, had a huge incentives to go ahead and exit their positions, especially at the beginning of the year for tax reasons, to not hold it throughout the whole year, but to go ahead and exit earlier on. And it just became a kind of a sell the news event. And there was obviously folks selling just kind of as a result of price moving down, so it was a bit of overselling as well. But I don't think that dynamic is going to be present here in this event that we're going to have tomorrow. And we do have confirmation that the NVIDIA earnings call is not going to be until 5 p.m. But keep in mind, though, that the AI stocks are absolutely going to have some volatility as a result of this. Render right now has broken out of this downtrending line of resistance, has been moving higher. So that's nice to see. I think probably, to the extent that you can kind of, see if NVIDIA is going to have good or bad earnings, it seems like folks are betting that it's going to be good earnings. They're buying the coin, or they're just trying to spoof the market, cause a little volatility to manipulate price.
Render's tanking right now. What's going on?
Yeah, it is selling off a good bit here in the daily candle.
What literally just happened? It's just been in like the last 30 seconds, right when you started talking about it. It just got sell orders just hit.
Yeah, I think
hilarious.
literally what I was saying was that it had a spoof to the upside, some market manipulation to the upside to kind of engineer a short. In the minute, in the hour, in the minutes charts, guys, there's always going to be, whales that are bigger than you that are trying to take a little bit of control. But I think generally this movement here shows that folks are bullish on AI. They're thinking that this is not the end for the AI, bull run, so to speak. But we are not going to be covering that NVIDIA earning. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing that they are going to vote just yet. I never put it past Congress to go longer than they should. We do have an update here from Watcher.guru, though. Now I'm saying it. Congressman Brad Sherman says passing crypto bill FIT21 is creating a competitor to the U.S. dollar. Okay, used by the worst criminals in the world. So, yeah, they're still getting into the very important points here. That they're really illustrating kind of the level of intelligence that has been elected to our leadership here in the United States. So, best and the brightest there, helping us wade through this new age of decentralized finance. Caleb, I think we've done a good job. It's not our fault that we're supposed to be the outcome today. I did see that it was supposed to be no later than 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that there would be a vote, but it's not the first time I've been lied to by a politician, so I'm not going to be too upset. Sorry that we couldn't bring you the breaking news here on the show, on the stream live, but we gave you all a ton of alpha. Thank you so much, Caleb, for joining us. If you've enjoyed the stream, definitely leave us a subscribe and a like. Caleb, any last words just on the market or on risk management or just on being a human here on this crazy rock floating through space?
I'm trying to figure that out myself, man. No, this was a great time, bro. So always good to see you guys on a Wednesday. Hopefully you guys learned some stuff from the charts that I shared or my approach to different things or whatever the case may be. If you guys have any questions, just hit me up on X, my first name, last name, @Caleb Franzen. You can find me there. So look forward to seeing you.
Absolutely. And I am going to announce the winner of the free $100. Remember yesterday, everybody had to, it was yesterday or the day before, they had to jump in and say that they love ETH. Well, the winner is bballgolf11, the user in the Discord. So I will reach out to you on Discord. You always hear people say they will never reach out to you and DM you. I will be doing that. And I will not be telling you anything or saying anything until we have you've asked me an authorization question and you have validated that it is me, because there are many fake accounts on Discord of all kinds of different people. But it will be on Discord.
There he is. He's in chat.
Absolutely. Look at that. How does it feel, B-Ball Golf? Let us know. The people want to know, and we're not just stalling in case the vote comes out at all. But B-Ball Golf, thank you so much for being a bro. You're getting rewarded here with free 100 American fiat dollars, and you can spend them on whatever you want. We'll be sending it over to you here probably by the end of the day. So I will reach out to you, and we can go from there. But we've tried to delay as much as we can. Thank you all, bros, for tuning in. This vote, I will be watching it like a hawk and tweeting about it. But Caleb, it's been fun having you on, and we'll be going live 9 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow morning. Definitely join us there if you're human. Stay hydrated. And if you're trading, keep those stop losses tight. Adios. Look at that.
Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros. Army pipe, lethal on trade. Entries and exits, worthy of praise. Tim, the professor of the TA. Shouted out loud on the PA. T-Shrooms News got the word. Doing better than what he deserves. Beamer, leave no evidence. Soon fly coop with his dividend. Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros.